Hello everyone, welcome back to a new EPL SuperCoach video from Aman Talks, I guess NRL SuperCoach, but we should probably call it Aman Talks EPL SuperCoach. If you're watching this from my NRL SuperCoach channel, that's probably where most of you are coming from. But yeah, maybe you just call it Aman Talks SuperCoach. But we're here to do a quick video on EPL SuperCoach, of course, one of the newest additions to the SuperCoach family of fantasy sports. And what I wanted to do in this video was just kind of go through some of the rules, some of the key things that we need to know about putting our teams together. The not SuperCoach season, the English Premier League season is starting very, very soon, this coming Friday. And so we'll need to get our teams together. I haven't even yet put a team together, as you can see. What I might do in this video is just kind of talk through, like really, really fresh, just looking at formations, just some of the key rules, trades, things like that. And then also how that then plays into maybe the kind of team that I will want to put together. Now, I've played a lot of Fantasy Premier League, which is the main fantasy game related to the English Premier League. Had a lot of good ranks in that game. I'd say I'm probably best at that game when it comes to fantasy sports, even more so definitely than I think even my NRL SuperCoach content. Rules are slightly different there, of course, so the way that you play that is a bit different, but of course, I'm watching the Premier League and stuff, so hopefully I've got a good handle of good players and whatnot. Just need to kind of look at it with a SuperCoach lens here when it comes to point scoring and things like that. So we have to pick a team of 15 and you have a starting 11 and you've got 4 bench spots. Now, that's probably the first thing let's get into is formations. So you can actually play a variety of formations. 4-4-2 is the default, as you can see on screen. One thing that's a little bit different to Fantasy Premier League, in FPL, you have to have a minimum of 3 defenders every single week. SuperCoach though, you can have 2. You can play a 2-5-3 formation. You can't do like 2-4-4 is not possible. But you can play a 2-5-3, so you can actually go really skinny in defenders and stack your midfielders and your forwards if you wanted to. Otherwise, your typical combinations that you would see in FPL are, your 3-4-3s, 3-5-2s. You can even play 5 at the back if you want to, which at times can be popular as well in FPL. More often than not, though, you want to get more of your attackers on the field. They're generally where more of your points are going to be scored from. So you're probably going to be able to do and play around with that a little bit more, given that you can have a formation where you only play 2 defenders. So that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. That's maybe a little bit of a differentiator from FPL. One of the other things is, if you're familiar with the general SuperCoach game, you've got captain and vice captains. Now, I presume that you're going to have things like the vice captain loophole that you can do in NRL SuperCoach, where you can set an early vice captain in the week, and then if that player goes really, really big, captain a non-playing player, and you can get a free loop and get double points from your vice captain. Now, we'll just have to see how that plays out in the season, but I believe that that's something that you can do, given that you've got the captain and vice captain. Now, similar to your other SuperCoach games, you're gonna have a rolling lockout. This is probably one of the biggest differences that you're going to find from FPL. So the way that FPL works is that the game for each match week or game week, as you say in FPL, 1.5 hours before the start of the first game of that game week, the entire field of teams, the entire team that you set is basically locked in. Captain, vice captain, the transfers that you've made, your bench order, all locked in. That's different for SuperCoach though. You can keep tinkering with the team. Players will only lock out once they've actually, their game has actually started. So that gives you a definite advantage. The problem is going to be from Australia looking at time zones, because of course a lot of these games happen overnight. But what you're going to be able to have is access to team lists, which is also going to be super, super important for match week 1, just because we know the least at the moment in preseason. So having access to team lists, if you can afford to be awake or something for that first match week, could be very, very useful for setting up your initial squad. So that's a big, big thing that you need to be noting when it comes to EPL SuperCoach, especially if you're coming back from an FPL background. But that is similar to how the other SuperCoach like NRL, presume AFL as well, also works this way. You can also undo trades and trade updates as well, so you can make trades early in the round and then change them. Once you get to different team lists, once you get to team lists and you realize, okay, I've actually got a player who's in my squad who's benched. I'm going to swap them out. I'm not going to trade them in. All that kind of stuff that you can do as well. But that will kind of uncover during the season. When it comes to content as well, guys, I haven't really figured out how I'm going to do this in terms of regularity. I just thought, let me do this initial video and we'll go from there, because it's going to be 38 weeks. It's a lot of a time commitment. And also it will roll over into the NRL preseason next year as well, which I want to kind of prioritize if I can. But look, we'll play that by ear. So that's a little bit on kind of things like formations. Now, one of the other things I wanted to get into was trades. So let's have actually a look at the number of trades that you can use. So let me just quickly zoom in here. So for the initial team, as you would know, you can make unlimited trades. So you can change your 15-man squad to your heart's content up until the start of the first game of the season. Then you have a maximum of 2 trades for each week for a maximum of 44 trades. Now, going through the rules and going through this compared to FPL, I think this is probably going to be the most difficult thing that we'll need to be flexible with and encounter and manage, I think, during the season. Because in FPL, you get given 38 weeks, you get effectively a free transfer every single week. But FPL's got other chips involved. You have a wild card. You've got 2 wild cards actually that you can use during the season. You have the 2 free hits. So you have effectively what a free hit means is a week where you can change your entire squad just for that particular week. So you've got other tools to your advantage to manipulate your team. And this is especially going to be something you'll notice a lot more when it comes to, there are going to be weeks where you're going to have doubles and blanks, which is what is called an FPL. You're going to have teams that will be missing due to other commitments. Maybe they're in, and it generally always ties into the domestic cup competitions in the EPL. So towards the kind of latter half of the season, teams that progress through things like the Carabao Cup or the FA Cup, what will happen is they will have to reschedule their Premier League games because those cup games generally happen on the weekends. And so what you might find is that, let's say, I'm an Arsenal fan, if anyone who's watching, let's say Arsenal progress to the FA Cup semi-final, and let's say whatever the game week that is, sometimes it's maybe, call it 29 or 30, they were supposed to play someone on the weekend, but now because they're in the FA Cup semi-final, that game gets postponed to a future day, and they're going to miss then game week 30. So you're going to have Arsenal blank in that particular week. But that also means that rescheduled fixture will have to fit into another match week some point later in the season. That creates then a double because Arsenal have their normal fixture that was scheduled for that week plus the one that they had to postpone as well. So you're going to have doubles and blanks. That's when in FPL you use a lot of your chips. You get bench boost as well to get access to your entire 15-point scoring. You also get your free hit to maximize that as well. What we have the equivalent of, I guess, is boosts, similar to what you have in NRL SuperCoach. You have the ability to make an extra trade in a particular round if you want to. But I think realistically, the fact that we're capped at 44 versus FPL, where if you want to make extra transfers outside of the one free one you get given every week, you can. It just means you take a points hit, -4 points hit if you want to use an extra transfer. You don't have that luxury here. If you're out of trades, you're done. You can't just use points to get access to future trades. So the way that I thought about this was that with 44 trades and some boosts for a 38-week season, I think you really need to be focusing on getting players who are super, super solid job security, having good minutes. There's no real question marks about their role. Because what happens is if you're going to have to be forced into trades with guys who have had, subpar roles and whatnot, you're using all those trades rather than, I think, wanting to try to hold on to them as much as you possibly can. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. We get 6 boosts in EPL SuperCoach. In NRL SuperCoach, you get 5. So you can see here that you get for up to 6 game weeks during this, the season at your choosing. Activated trade boost for a 3rd trade to use for that game week. So I think saving boosts for things like the blanks, the doubles is going to be really, really important. Because what you might find is that a lot of popular teams, you can have a week where 5-6 teams are missing out, and then you can use that boost to kind of bring in players who are going to be available for that week. In FPL, you've got things like the free hit where you can just sub them out for a week, change your whole squad, and then you get back your old team after that. Don't have that luxury here in EPL SuperCoach. So my first thought when it came to building my team, just going through these rules, I think it's going to be really, really important to pick like a really robust, solid minutes players squad if you possibly can. Now, of course, other elements of SuperCoach like cheapies who will go and increase in value due to their kind of 3-round rolling average, that kind of stuff is still going to be useful. So price changes, it's still important to jump on players who are going to increase in price so that you can eventually fit your team with more premium picks. So we're going to have to be selective about that as well, finding the right enablers, the right cheapies, who can obviously have good roles, hopefully score some points and then, gain in value, and then you can trade them out down the line as well. So that was some of the main things I wanted to call out when it came to some of the rules and whatnot. I'm just going to quickly double check that there was no other real rules or anything that I wanted to quickly touch on. Oh yeah, of course, the last one was point scoring. So how do the points get scored? Luckily, you can see what players would have scored in previous seasons as well. So it kind of gives you a good idea of who the good picks were. But yeah, so you can see here the rules about that. In some weeks that teams will have buys or will not play for various reasons in some game weeks. And then you'll have other teams who will be scheduled to play twice. So effectively, when you get to a week and your player's playing twice, you want as many of those players. And those are the weeks where you want to captain them as well, because they're going to get double the matches, potential for double the goals, all that kind of stuff as well. Now, when it comes to point scoring, nothing too crazy, to be honest. Like this, they've scaled the goal scoring points based on goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, and forward, which is the same way that FPL does it. So nothing really too new there. Own goal is -6 points, which is common across the board, which makes sense. Assists is a bit different. So in FPL, assists are 3 points, and it doesn't matter what position you are, you get 3 points for an assist. Here, they've actually increased assists for defenders and goalkeepers by 2 points. So they get 8 points for an assist. A midfielder and a forward get 6 points. Now, that's not a huge difference in points, but what it does mean is that if you can find a defender who's pretty attacking, has got the ability to score goals, get assists as well, they're generally going to get pretty good spike when it comes to points as well. So attacking defenders are going to be very, very useful when it comes to EPL SuperCoach. Fantasy Premier League this season have introduced something called defensive contributions, which is things like actions in the game when it comes to like clearances, blocks, interceptions, tackles, ball recoveries. If you accumulate up to, I think it's 10 or 12 of them, you get an additional 2 points to your score. EPL SuperCoach doesn't have anything like that. You do get things around, I say that. I completely will take that back, because you do get points for things like tackles, winning aerials, clearances. If you're dispossessed, you lose some points, block shots. So what this means, I think, is that you can see that they're half points, so you get kind of rounded up as well. So what that probably means is that if you get a defender who makes 5 clearances in a game, you get 1 point. If you get 2 tackles in a game, you get a point. So if you can get maybe a similar thing, if you get 10, let's say you get 10 clearances in a game, that's 2 additional points. But see, this is the thing, is that 2 additional points for a clearance, and if one defender does that maybe every game for 3 games, they'll get 6 points. Or let's say for every 4 games, they get 8 points. But what if you get one defender who just gets an assist every 4 games as well? Now, that's unlikely, but you can get defenders out there who can get maybe 8 to 10 assists in a season. We saw Anthony Robinson for Fulham get that many last year. I think Daniel Munoz from Palace, not as many assists, but very, very attacking, lots of goals as well. I still think my long-term view is that it's still probably better to get attacking defenders, just because they get this bump in points from assists. You know, for example, 1 assist is worth 40 clearances. Well, have I done my math right? Let's see, 5 times that 1. Yeah, that's right. 40 clearances is worth 1 assist. Of course, a defender's not just going to get clearances. They'll get things like tackles and whatnot. But I think it still leans to me that some centre-backs are good. Maybe if you get like a cheapy centre-back who gets some of these things, they'll get some additional points and tick over and maybe increase in value. But still, I think the appeal for me is going to be these really attacking defenders as well. Other things like yellow, red cards, you get negative points as well. So this is something that is useful. You know, a lot of players do often get yellow carded. There are some players out there who barely ever. So that's something that you can also account for. And yeah, playing at least 60 minutes, you get 2 points. Less than 60 minutes, 1 point. This is identical to FPL. So nothing, I guess, new there. So I think the point scoring is pretty solid. Nothing too outrageous. It's not too different to FPL as well. So it's not, I think, going to be too dissimilar in terms of who are the players that you are going for. So before I start building a team, what I wanted to quickly look at was just looking at the players available in EPL SuperCoach and how they would have tracked in previous seasons as well, just to give us a good benchmark of who are the players that we should maybe be keeping an eye out for. So going back to 24-25 season, no surprises that Mo Salah, £15.55 million. He is probably been the most consistent, I call it EPL SuperCoach, but in Fantasy Premier League, he's pretty much someone who I always start with every season, just because he generally always starts strongly. And he's one of the safest, most consistent captain options out there as well. And he had a record-breaking season last year, so would have scored 560 points when it comes to EPL SuperCoach terms. If you go even further back to other seasons, if I go to 23-24, he was actually a little bit lower down, but I think he missed a lot of games due to some injuries and maybe AFCON as well, but he was 358. If you look at averages, he was still in the top 10 when it comes to averages with 11.2. That was probably a down season for him. 22-23, if you look at averages, he was at 9th at 10.2. I'm saying this out loud, but I'm looking at it thinking, oh, Salah's actually not as highly averaging as I thought. Yeah, he's 3rd in others in 21-22, and we'll go back to 2021, and then we'll probably stop there. And Salah, 10.4, fourth highest. So surprisingly enough, if you actually look at the last kind of 5 seasons, it's only the last year where he was actually the highest averaging player in the entire Premier League. So there is maybe some merit to not have to start with him, just given that how expensive he is. I've been trying to find some better value, maybe the the better option as well. Like a name that I saw come up quite a bit was Bruno Fernandes. He has a 10.9 average last season, and I think the thing with Bruno, he doesn't probably get as many attacking stats as someone like a Mo Salah, but he will get a lot more of those things like the clearances, blocks, and recoveries, because he's the main man for United and gets a lot of those kind of clean-up stats, if I want to call it that way. Yeah, and again, 11.8 average in the year before that as well. So someone who's fairly consistent. If we filter maybe looking at purely the forwards, just to start off with, and if we look at 24-25, maybe as a bit of a proxy, you got Salah, Brian Mbeumo. He was amazing for Brentford. He's now at United though, and I think he might be missing penalties. This is something I probably should have mentioned as well, looking at the point scoring. Ideally, I think you get players who are on penalties, because it just means that they've got easy, free route to additional points and additional goals. So if you're looking at, say, the forwards here, highest averaging forwards, if you look at the top 6, all of those players were on penalties for their teams last season. Salah for Liverpool, Mbeumo for Brentford, Isak for Newcastle, Haaland for Man City, Mateus Cunha for Wolves last year, but he's now also moved to Manchester United, and Saka for Arsenal was also on penalties. You can see lots and lots of penalty takers. Chris Wood there as well. Justin Kluivert was on penalties for Bournemouth, and João Pedro as well for Brighton last season. So I think ideally getting penalty takers is always a safe bet as well. And one thing I wanted to also note is that you can see that Haaland was in 4th position for highest averaging forwards last year. He had a down year by his standards, as did Man City. I don't know what his average was in 23-24. I'm going to say it's pretty high, 12.2. So he's someone who had a bit of a down year last year. So automatically I look at him and think, I think there's only potential for an uptick. Therefore, he probably will be someone I would maybe look to start with. Good safe captaincy option. Maybe EPL SuperCoach isn't as strongly weighted to captaincy as maybe FPL. In FPL, there's so much of a emphasis on your captain picks and like mapping out your captains for rounds ahead. I think EPL SuperCoach is probably similar, given that the points that you're seeing here, the averages are only about the 13, 14. Very different to your NRL SuperCoaches, where averages can be like in the 70s and 80s. Therefore, the captaincy probably still is something that we need to be mindful of, and getting the double points. But Haaland's got some good fixtures. I think game week 6 he's got Burnley, which looks like a beautiful game to want to captain him. Sorry, this is 24-25, so I don't know why I'm looking at that for Haaland. But yeah, he's got Wolves in week 1, which I think is a good fixture. Even Spurs, they've got new manager. They're missing. They're going to be losing a few players as well, like Heung-min Son is going to be leaving. So Haaland has got some good fixtures as well. So I'm just going to have a quick go at putting some players into my team. I'll try to fill out a full 15 men, but appreciate that this is not going to be refined at all. I'm kind of doing this on the fly, but I wanted to put something out there when it came to EPL SuperCoach. So let's start with forwards. I think I've talked myself into Haaland. I won't put in Salah just yet, just because I think he had an absolute amazing season last year, but maybe there is an argument to not have to start with him, given that he's probably priced at his absolute peak. I say that, but he's scary to not have. So I'm gonna stick with Salah just to start off with. Let's also go to the midfielders, because we didn't really talk about midfielders, but midfield is obviously a place where you're going to have a lot of high point scoring. If you look at the 24-25 highest averaging midfielders, Cole Palmer is in there at 12.72 million. And I actually think he had a bit of a down year as well. Very, very highly owned as well at 51%. I'm actually going to quickly go back to the forwards just to see what the ownership was for those forwards. Yeah, Haaland is 39%. Mo Salah is 32%. So they're the two kings of the forwards as it currently stands. Højlund, he looks like he could be on the outer for Manchester United, so I'm not sure if he's a pick, even as a potential cheapie or enabler. Then you've got Wirtz from Liverpool, who's just moved across there. He's looked really, really good in pre-season as well. In FPL, he's pretty much locked into my squad. I won't put him just yet in for EPL SuperCoach, just because I want to see some other prices. But 8 million doesn't actually seem like that bad of a price. So, to be honest, someone who's got a lot of potential as well. If you didn't go Salah, maybe you go Florian Wirtz instead from Liverpool. Ollie Watkins at 8.3, I don't mind that as well. He's got very, very good fixtures to start off with in 2025-26. So Newcastle's at home, at Villa Park. Then he's got Brentford. Then he's got Crystal Palace. And then if I'm trying to see ahead to his future games, this is probably I need to try to figure out a bit more with the website now. Still getting used to all the kind of user interface and whatnot. Look, I can't find it, but oh, there you go. I found it. Yeah, so Newcastle, Brentford, Palace. Then it's Everton, Sunderland, Fulham, and Brentford, and then Spurs. So up until kind of match week 8 or game week 8, it's a very, very good run of games. A lot of home games in there as well. I think Ollie Watkins probably on penalties. Very, very solid pick. He's solid for minutes as well. He's generally a 90-minute man for Aston Villa. I think he actually could be a very, very good shout as well. And one good thing with him as well, he's a bit creative as well. He can get assists, not just goals. So I think someone like a Watkins could be good. Saka, for example, he's a bit more highly owned than a Saka, I think Saka could maybe be a little bit off. Could be off penalties. We just don't know yet with the inclusion of Gyökeres for Arsenal. Maybe Saka is off penalties, and I'm not sure. Isak could be going to Newcastle. Could be going to Liverpool. So bit of doubt about him as well. So I'm just going to stick with Haaland and Salah for the time being, but I'm very interested as well in Ollie Watkins. Going back to the midfielders, if we're looking at the ownership, Cole Palmer is number 1 at 12.72. I understand that as well because when it comes to FPL for the opening kind of 10 weeks, him and Salah actually rotate very well when it comes to captaincy. And the thing with Cole Palmer as well, he had a really, really strong start to last season. He had this game in week 6 where I think he scored 4 goals versus Brighton. But he had a bit of a dip towards the second half of the season. But I think with Cole Palmer, most people are looking at first half of the season, he was incredible. And in that first season where he moved from City to Chelsea, he was amazing. And he was so cheap. And as soon as he started for Chelsea, I think it was in week 7, he pretty much just went on a tear, like lots of double-digit scores. And I think I'm looking at double-digit scores in EPL SuperCoach pretty much being a good captaincy score. Lots and lots of big double-digit scores in the second half of the season before last. First half of last year was really, really good as well. I think Cole Palmer is going to be having a bit of an uptick. João Pedro coming in for Chelsea, I think will help him as well. He's on penalties as well. No question about minutes. Sorry, I didn't show it just then as well. But Chelsea do also have some pretty good fixtures as well to open the season. So I'm just going to have to quickly find this. Sorry for jumping all around, guys. I'm still getting used to all of this. But yeah, if you look at Crystal Palace is okay, but it's at Stamford Bridge. Then it's West Ham, Fulham, Brentford, United, Brighton, Liverpool, Forest. To be honest, that opening set of games isn't like amazing, but there's enough good games in there where you could captain him. Like I think Brentford could be taking a bit of a backward step this season. West Ham, I think, is a decent game as well. Brighton is the game that he went and scored 4 goals against last year. Brighton are one of those teams who do generally like to play and so can offer some space in behind them. So someone like a Cole Palmer can do well. But they're just long term, apart from Liverpool in 7, there's no real tough games. And then maybe in Arsenal in 13. I just think for the opening kind of set of games, there's just not that many difficult fixtures. United fans will get mad at me for saying that as well. But I just don't think there's that many difficult fixtures. So I think if I could start with Cole Palmer, I probably would. Just the fact that he's good for minutes on penalties and whatnot. He becomes really, really attractive. So let's put him in there for now as well and start putting in some expensive players. And we only had $100 million salary to start with, and I've only got 60 left, and I still have 12 spots to fill. So I'm gonna have to put in some cheapies. One is Rodri from Man City. Now, 3.75 million is very, very cheap. You saw how highly owned he was. He makes a lot of sense because FPL-wise, he's generally not always been someone that is very highly looked at. But I think the fact that with EPL SuperCoach, you do have points for things like tackles, interceptions, and whatnot. I think that kind of raises his floor just a little bit. Like if I look at his score average for 23-24, he had an average of 10.4. That's really, really good. Like we're looking at other double-digit names there being like your Bruno Fernandes, your Sakas, and whatnot. So 23-24, when he played a full season, he had a really good year for Man City. I'm pretty sure he scored like maybe 6 goals, but just the fact that he's going to be out, I think, for the first few weeks, maybe for Man City, but he'll be someone who I still think you want to have on your bench because eventually he'll play for City. Good for minutes. Pep loves him. And if he can get even anywhere close to that for 3.75 million, that's unreal value. So I think Rodri is fine. Maybe not to start the season. He might not play, but could be someone I think you can just park there, especially knowing that we don't have that many trades. So picking in cheapies that you think will eventually come in and plays for a good team as well. Pretty happy to start with someone like a Rodri. Now, we still have a couple of other midfielder spots. If I go by the averages from last season, Jared Bowen had a very good season for West Ham. He's listed as a forward for FPL, but he's listed here as a midfielder in EPL SuperCoach. I think for similar prices, I would probably take a Bruno. He's a little bit higher owned, Bruno, but he does have the penalties, which I don't know if Bowen will have. I think Lucas Paqueta will have them for West Ham. And I think the fact that Bruno will get more of those things around the tackles, clearances, I think his floor is probably just a little bit higher. He doesn't have to rely so much on getting goals and things every single game. So I'm not sure if I'll pick either two yet, but just wanted to flag, I'd probably take Bruno just over Bowen, despite this slightly higher price of Bruno Fernandes. There's a lot of other good names here, like an Eze for Crystal Palace. Maddison is out for a good few months. So Declan Rice is also someone who's tempting for FPL. He's a little bit cheaper at 9.28 million. Yuri Tielemans as well for Aston Villa. Maybe he's on penalties, but there's not. I think Watkins would probably have them. So you can see that a lot of people are looking at people like Odegaard as well for 7.9 million. He had a bit of a down year last year, so he could maybe be someone that people are looking at for a bit of an uptick. Moises Caicedo from Chelsea, again, good, decent long-term fixtures. Generally is going to be pretty good on those things like the tackles, interceptions and whatnot. Probably not so much on the attacking stats though. He's got an average last season of 6.4. I'm going to guess that it wasn't too different in 23-24. Yeah, 6.1. I think he's pretty much priced at what I expect from him. So I'm not sure if he's a slam dunk pick, but if you're looking for a budget pick around that price, then maybe he's someone who's decent. Don't mind someone like a Didingra. He's moved from Brighton to Sunderland, promoted team 4.66 million. When he was playing for Brighton, he was actually pretty decent. Average score was 4.4, but that was always because maybe minutes were a bit up and down. So I think, you can see 23-24 when he had, a bit more consistency in minutes. Average score was 7.6. And I think the appeal of him is probably just the price. The fact that he's 4.66 million. I'll chuck him in for the time being. Sunderland actually have pretty good opening set of fixtures as well. So if you look at their run to start the season, they start off with West Ham, which is at home. Again, first home game, being back in the Premier League. They'll want to be up for that. Then you've got, who's that? Brighton, I think. Oh, Burnley. Sorry, that's Burnley. So Burnley, again, another promoted team. So that looks good. Brentford, Crystal Palace, Aston Villa, Forest, United, Wolves, Chelsea, Everton, Arsenal. It gets a little bit tougher from kind of 6 onwards, but the first 5, I don't think there's too bad. So someone like an Adingra, if he gets some attacking stats in these first few games, he's one of those players who I can see price going up. And he's playing in an attacking position for Sunderland as well. I'm happy to probably start with him maybe as a bit of a cheapie, but again, I haven't put a whole lot of thought into it. But just kind of scrolling down, looking at ownership and looking at the price, he could be someone that could be worthwhile looking at. Going to pause there on the midfielders. Let's go to goalkeepers. I'm curious to see what prices are looking like. By far the highest owned keepers are David Raya and James Trafford. This makes sense. It looks as though the cheapest prices in EPL SuperCoach are around the low 3s. James Trafford moving to Man City. He's 3.9 million. If he gets a starting role for Man City, he will just be one of those kind of more must-have type GPs. So I'll put him in there maybe as a bench pick for now. Now, goalkeepers is probably a low upside position. That's generally what the case is always, even in FPL. You can see here, highest averaging goalkeeper last year was for 8 points. So there's not a whole big difference. Like there was about, there's only a 1 point difference per average, which is 38 points in the grand scheme of things over a season, which is really not that much. So I don't think you need to worry about your goalkeeper pick so much. You can probably go 2 cheapy goalkeepers if you wanted. And it's one of those positions where I wouldn't be trying to use too many trades on, ideally, because it's a low upside position, and it is the lowest upside position in FPL and probably in EPL SuperCoach as well. So I think going cheap with someone like a James Trafford to start with, if he gets a starting gig, is fine. In terms of high ownership, Raya is number 1. Arsenal have been the best defense in the Premier League for the last couple of seasons, so this makes a lot of sense to me. The appeal of him is that he's completely nailed on for Arsenal, plays every single game. You can pick him in game week 1 and you'd never have to trade him out for the entire season. You can literally, barring an injury, of course, you can just bank on him getting clean sheets. I think there was something in the scoring about saves and making saves. Probably should have talked about that a little bit, because that is useful when it comes to the goalkeepers. So if you look at the point scoring, so a goalkeeper will get a point for every single save that they make. So clean sheets are getting 8 points. So clean sheets should still be the bread and butter in terms of this is where you want to get your points from. Ideally though, if you've got a team who's, if you get a goalkeeper who's a little bit cheaper, maybe doesn't get as many clean sheets as an Arsenal, but they're playing for a team that concedes a lot of shots that they can save, they can rack up plenty of points there. Because assuming everyone plays 90 minutes, you get 2 points. if, let's say, a week where Raya makes 1 save is very common, clean sheet, 1 save, 2 points, that's 3 plus 8, that's an 11 pointer. But if you have someone who maybe concedes a goal, so they don't get the clean sheet, but let's say they make 8 saves, that does happen, and that can happen, 7 saves maybe even, they're getting 9 points. So you might have someone who doesn't get a clean sheet, but by making and racking up so many saves, they're actually not that far away from someone like a Raya. So I think the keepers who stand out to me as those teams who would concede a lot of shots, Nottingham Forest do generally invite the ball. They're generally a counter-attacking team. That was how they played last year. So that would be someone like a Sells from Nottingham Forest. I can't look at where's his average. There is 6.7 average. He's 7 million. So he's actually a little bit more expensive than Raya. That would make me lean towards just get Raya, because I think you can bank on the clean sheets a little bit more. Chelsea generally do concede a fair amount of shots, so Sanchez is an option. So is Nick Pope. Look, this feels like a position where I think ideally you kind of just pick anyone you really like, and leave it at that. Don't mind over Verbruggen from Brighton as well. He's generally going to be, Brighton don't keep many clean sheets, but he will rack up saves. Look, for now, I'm just going to stick in with Raya, and maybe he's someone who I take out to free up money down the track, because I've only got £41 million left. Now, let's look at defenders. Highest owned defender currently is Frimpong. Look, I'm a little bit concerned. I don't know if he'll start game week 1, just because I think you've got Connor Bradley there, who'll probably start at right back. But Frimpong is someone who will definitely feature at some point in the season, just because when Salah goes to AFCON, there's a good chance that Frimpong actually plays right wing for Liverpool, which is mad. So someone like a Frimpong, I wouldn't be picking him week 1 at the moment, but he's someone that we can keep an eye out for. When it comes to prices and highest averaging, Daniel Munoz, there he is. He was probably the most attacking defender last year in the Premier League, and I don't see that changing, to be honest. If you're looking for a premium defender with attacking upside, he's probably your man. Chelsea in week 1 is okay. Not great. I wouldn't expect a clean sheet there, but he is ridiculously attacking. And Crystal Palace do have a decent run of games, kind of from round 4 onwards. You've got that's last season. Apologies. The second half of last season is when he went mad. If you go from 13 onwards, lots of double-digit games in a row. He's someone who I think is a very scary person to not have. 4 onwards, when he's got Sunderland, West Ham, Liverpool, Everton, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Brentford, that could be maybe the time to jump on Munoz. Maybe not to start the year, because the way that EPL SuperCoach will work, if he doesn't quite meet his average, he'll go down in price, and then you can pick him up at that point in time. Looking at other names here as well, Anthony Robertson, he picked up a lot of assists last season for Fulham. Fulham actually underperformed their defensive data last year as well, so they could be a team that gets more clean sheets than even last year as well. But he's someone who I think will get more assists, no goals. So pretty much all of his attacking returns last year were assists. Don't think he got any goals. Gabriel is very tempting, because Gabriel, he hasn't featured in preseason that much for Arsenal, so he's someone who I don't know if I'll start. I need to see him play in preseason before picking him. Good thing with him is that he plays for a good defense, and he also generally is safe for like 4 to 6 goals a season. He's the main attacking weapon for Arsenal from set pieces. So someone to keep an eye out for. Looking at this defenders, Virgil van Dijk and Liverpool have got pretty decent fixtures, and they were very, very good defense last year. Murillo is decent from Nottingham Forest. In FPL, he's very good for those defensive contributions. That will be the same thing here, where he, in EPL SuperCoach, will be mopping up a lot of those things like the tackles, clearances, and whatnot. Forest actually do have some pretty good fixtures to open the season as well. You're looking at Brentford, Palace, West Ham, Arsenal, Burnley, Sunderland, Newcastle, Chelsea. So not that many tough games to start off with. I don't mind a Nottingham Forest defender. They were pretty good defense last year as well. I'm going to pick him just for the time being as a bit of a punt, as a very low owned one as well. He's only 1% owned as it currently stands. Van Dijk's probably a little bit safer, but let's start with Murillo for the time being. And then Aiton Nuri, he's going to be tempting, but other minutes going to be there. I just don't know. I don't think I can start with him for game week 1, but he's someone who's very, very attacking. Tottenham defenders are higher up on the owned, and that's probably because of their price. Mickey van de Ven, like 5.28 million. Not generally a set piece threat, but you'd hope that maybe Tottenham's defense will improve under Thomas Frank rather than Ange Ball. Ange was pretty much all about the attack. So I can see the appeal for the 26% ownership. Udogie at 4.64. I don't think he's featured a lot in preseason as well for Spurs. If he is there for game week 1, I'll probably just pick him over Van de Ven. He's just a little bit cheaper, and he's attacking fullback as well. So he'll more likely get bigger attacking stats, less likely to get things like your interceptions, tackles, things like that as well. But look, he's a good 600k cheaper than Mickey Van de Ven. So let's start with him for the time being. And then Saliba at 7.5 is a good way into that Arsenal defense if you want more clean sheets. I've got Raya there at the moment, so let's leave him for the time being. Goalkeeper from Brighton could be a nice little cheapie at 5 million. He's just come in. He actually scored a goal for them in pre-season. So for the cheapie aspect of it at only 5 million, I don't mind it. I'll put him in there for now, just more of a kind of a placeholder, I think, for the price. And then you've got Esteve from Burnley. I wanted to speak about him as well. Actually, there's two guys I want to talk about here. Dorgu and Esteve. So Dorgu at 4.4 million, very, very cheap. And he's very, very attacking. Now, I don't know how secure his minutes are because Dallo can play on as a fullback in either side of the field. So his minutes would be a little bit more concerning, and I'm not 100% convinced on his minutes, but his attacking potential is definitely there. So I'm just going to fill out my defense here with him and Esteve. Esteve should be playing as a 9-minute man for Burnley. He's just there kind of really as a bit of a cheapie. And the thing with the Dorgu is that because you can play 2 defenders or 3 defenders, I don't have to play these 2 guys every week. I can have 1 more expensive defender and then 2 maybe more slightly cheaper ones as well if I want to. So I still have 3 more spots to fill and only 14 mil. This is going to be a little bit tough, I think, to fit in all the players that I'm looking at. I might have to sacrifice someone like a Salah. Let's go back to the forwards. I was very, very keen on Ollie Watkins. I'm just trying to think if there's anyone a little bit cheaper. You've got a, what's his name? Mark Gui, who's now moved from Chelsea across to Sunderland. Yeah, 3.75 million. Could be a little bit of a decent cheapie option on the bench there if he gets minutes at some point during the season. And as we spoke about with the Dingra, Sunderland's kind of opening set of fixtures aren't that bad. Marmoush is a nice little point of difference, but again, minutes, I'm not 100% sure. You've got Rodri, and I think if you've got Rodri and Haaland, don't need to force in a Marmoush as well, because the thing with Man City, they do spread their goals around as well. So a lot of other options here. Iliman and Dye from Everton is more popular in FPL. Should be on penalties, but Everton are they're just not an amazing attack. Let's go to averages as well. Maybe there's someone I can find who's a little bit lower owned that I do like. Where's Thiago? So Thiago is in Brentford, $3.75 million. Just keep an eye on him, because if someone like Wissa moves to Newcastle, at $3.75 million, Thiago could actually get minutes and could be a decent little option as well. So I'm actually going to stick him in there for $3.75 million as it currently stands. Look, we don't need to sort out all these players at the moment. This is more price points. I think I'm probably going to try to get a cheapie in there if I can, and someone who I think will get decent minutes. So 2 more spots for £10.63 million. So probably only need to get maybe like another £5 million kind of pound player. Let's keep Salah there for the timing. I think I'll find it hard to not start with Salah, to be honest, in EPL SuperCoach. Let's filter by, let's just go down by price and see the players that I can afford around the 5 million. Actually, I'm going to see if there's any cheapie midfielders that I might like. Someone like a Jack Harrison, yeah, maybe for Leeds if he gets a spot. I'm not sure. Pape Sarr, maybe potentially for Spurs, because he should be playing every game. Opening games, he might actually play a little bit further forward. Otherwise, he could be just kind of a deep holding midfielder for Tottenham. Reinders from Man City did score a double, and he actually looked really, really good. You know what? I'm actually going to chuck him in there. He did score a couple of goals in pre-season and looked very, very good as well. And I think he'll generally be I think he'll be safer for minutes than I think maybe someone like a, who did I mention? Marmoush, I think will be pretty good. Let's stick with Reinders for the time being. And then I saw Keenan Dewsbury Hall. He just moved from, I don't know where he's moved from, but he's moved to Everton. And could actually feature in their starting lineup as well. If I put him as a bit of an enabler, I've got 230k spare, so I've actually not really got that much money left to play with. So let's maybe save that team. Let's put in Raya as my starter. I don't think I'll put Dorgu, because he's also got tough fixtures to start off with as well. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to choose your formation here. Let's go 3-4-3, I think. Yeah, that's right. Yep. Rodri, Reinders. Yep, sweet. That could be the team. And let's just captain Mo Salah in round 1 against Bournemouth. There you go, guys. There's my team. Nah, that's not fully set in stone, but hopefully that gave you some help in terms of how I'm looking at maybe building the team. This is all done completely off the cuff as well. No planning. I've just been recording this and just thought, let's just kind of talk it out and see how we go. But yeah, look, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, find that somewhat useful. And hopefully we'll see you in another video when it comes to EPL SuperCoach. If you enjoyed it, please do smash the like and subscribe as well if you want to see more either NRL SuperCoach content or some more EPL SuperCoach content as well. And see you all in the next one. Cheers.